Hi everyone, Alchemist Lion here, and today I'm going to cover an updated version of my universal amp design, because the traps I've been using with this crowd control nerf in play has slightly altered, and you'll still have success using my old one, especially in the earlier regions, but I want to kind of show my new methods and how I would apply it to any amp. And I'm going to make a fake amp, and we're going to see that take place. So let's begin. Alright, so I'm here in this fake battlefield, and we have fake amp right here, and we have some fake husks that will spawn in right here, and attack our fake amp. And what I'm doing with this whole scenario is instead of just showing the universal amp like I did in the past, I really want to show how I create the concept using terrain, because ultimately I have that as my blueprint, but if the terrain differs, you have to kind of shift and alter things a bit. So I'm going to show that here. We have 3 path ups, and so we're going to take those into account when we're building this design, and I'll show you how I go ahead and trap out an amp and what my methods are. So in total, I'm going to be using these 11 schematics, and then 3 of them are going to have 2 different perk options. That's the electric fields, the floor freeze, and the sound walls. So if I'm trying to figure out how to defend an amp or like an atlas or anything like that, essentially what I'm doing is I'm just trying to see where they're going to spawn in and how they're going to path. So in this case, we know they're only going to path from one direction when we're dealing with amps. So I'm just going to take a look in this one direction, and that's going to be from the east here. So what I basically do is I kind of count out, or I kind of just figure out where the spawns are going to be approximately. And I kind of use the 12 to 13 tile range. So from here you kind of go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we have this already setting at 10, so it's a little earlier, but this is kind of the 10 line. From here and backwards, I'm kind of just keeping I would like to have my tunnels 9 maximum, but I try to get them as small as possible. But to start the process, I kind of do that and just kind of figure out where I think they're going to spawn. So I know if they're coming from the east, they're going to spawn at least from here, and then I kind of go as far over this way and as far over this way as possible, just to look at the lay of the land to kind of find out where they might path. So here I know that flingers might come up this way, and there's 3 pathways for the husks to spawn and climb up. We have down here, we have up here, and we have all the way over here. So I kind of take a look, and I'm trying to get to where their pathing would converge the most. And that's usually closer to the amp. So I know that they're going to be pathing up here. And I know that they're going to be pathing potentially, I should say, up here. And so that's going to give the basis to how I'm going to start building this. So now that we kind of got their pathing potentially forecasted, what I'm going to do is we're basically going to test it. And if you're not testing it, then you can kind of just get everything set up in, a way that would work for you. But essentially, this is what I'm taking a look at, and I'm going to see where they path. So now the first thing is I find any tiles right up top of a ramp, they're going to end up breaking, or it might cause their pathing to switch a little bit, so I usually leave that top part blank. And then what I do is I kind of just scatter the floors all around, kind of like so, all the way up to the amp. And I'll do that on this side as well. And again, taking away that piece. Like that. So this is essentially on the top part where they're coming up towards the amp to test out their pathing. Now what I do is I take a look at these wooden floor spikes. And these are the double crit damage, crit rating damage, heals, builds, attached floor spikes. And I'm just going to take these and I'm going to place them pretty much everywhere that I have floor tiles. And basically this is going to help me learn their pathing, and I'll be able to watch them. They're going to be walking slower, and it helps me really get an idea of how they behave. Like that. The other thing I'll do now is because flingers and lobbers might spawn in, and I don't have anything stopping them from throwing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that right now. And to do that, I'm going to use these anti-air traps, and I'm using the double range, double reload durability heals builds, just because I don't want to use a lot of them, and it will allow to give a good span, and I can also see where they're going to probably throw from. So I'm going to put those down. And to do that, usually what I do is I kind of pick areas close to spawn. So right here would be one. Getting them a little elevated but not blocked in any way. Just to kind of give a little extra height to them. And I would do that. And again, things like this might change after. This is just how I, preliminarily figure this out. And then what I do is I go here, and anywhere where I think they're walking, I'll end up doing this. And especially towards the back by the amp, these will change, but I'm putting them here kind of to help me out in determining where things are going. And what I do is I pop some darts down. It also allows me to kind of figure out what I can get away with if smashers come in. And those darts are my double crit damage, crit rating damage, increased build health darts. So they're very similar to how I have the spike set up, it's just instead of heals, they're increased health. I want the floors to heal, and I want the walls to kind of act as a further barrier, and that's why I picked those 6th perks. And then honestly from here, what I would do is I would run it. This is basically my intro to how an amp will operate. It will give me a lot of information as soon as I run this. If anything spawns in and these anti-airs aren't doing their job, I will just kill those. But otherwise, I leave all the husks path up, and I see what kind of damage these spikes do, along with the darts, and I kind of just see how they path. It's not about beating it, it's about watching which of these ramps they utilize. That way I can set up the next stage and set up the next part of this process with a lot more confidence that I'm not wasting my time. This takes very little time to set up, and it's a great first way to kind of see how they're pathing with as much natural terrain available to them as possible, because then you really get an idea of what they want to do. So we're going to go on the assumption that when we did this run, husks primarily went up this corridor here, and then when we did the experiment, we noticed that husks here liked to path up this path. And we had very little or no husks come up this side, there. And that's the assumption we're going to go with this next phase of my building. So the first thing I'm going to do is block off. Now I don't like to use block off. So what I would do to begin with, especially where nothing was pathing this way to start, is I would basically just do this. I would put my dart here, and then I would go and I would put 2 sets of spikes right here, and then that would be my entire block off for this side. It's just enough to deter them from wanting to come up here, especially where I'm still going to keep this stuff open. Nothing should change their mind now that I know their natural pathing is to go up this middle spot and the left spot. So since I know that, I can kind of clear off everything up here because this wasn't used in our test. Even right here, this dart, too far away. And then these darts are too close. I wouldn't put darts this close normally anyway. And so that's kind of where I would set up. I would just have that here. Then I would go to this middle piece, and I know they're pathing up here. What I want to do is I'd want to keep my darts as far away, but they're still activating. So if they're pathing here and walking towards the amp like this, I know that from this tile, this would kind of be the ideal 2 tile away part, and then I would do this right till about 3 away. So you see, this is the 3rd tile away, so I'd kind of put my darts to there. This would also give us a little backing in case we needed this on this side. We could add another dart right here, but at this stage we're not really there yet. So then from here, I would add in more darts. The other thing I would do is I would start to look at adding my dynamos in and pathing them. Again, leaving it so there's 3 tiles from the end where our fake amp is set up. And I would set this, get these upgraded, even though that's not really needed here. And I do this. And then I don't need these. This is all on getting their pathing set up the best. And then I do the same thing over on here. Like that. And this is getting their pathing set up so that I am basically just following along where they want to walk naturally and trying to make it where they don't want to like aggro on any of the walls. And so they just walk here towards the amp. And then again, I don't need anything this close, so I break this. And that's the start of the middle. So with this middle pathing set up, I would then go over to this side. And as soon as I get up here, so I know that this one probably won't work, I want to keep them away from that ramp area. So I sit up here, and they're most likely going to go this path. So I know that I don't need this anymore. And I would probably even want to dart right here now. Now because this is 3 tiles away, I could probably even get one away with one right here. So I'll put those darts there. And then I can afford a dynamo right here. And then I'd probably put a wall there just to see if I can really not make them want to go this way. And now they're coming up this path here. And so I could do another dynamo right here. And then to go this way. So I could probably get rid of that floor piece until they hit here. And again, I'm trying to get away from having anything close to the amp, so I'd probably have it set up like this. And I can get rid of that. And so this would be the next phase in that. So once I have everything upgraded here and all in play, I would then probably do this for a second run. I would really test this out. Again, shooting if I need to. At this stage, I'm going to go with the assumption I haven't needed to yet. These are doing their job and deterring anything from throwing. And I would see how things are spawning and pathing. Like so. So from here, I would take a look after that run. First, any course corrections. Now let's say this zap-o-max or dynamo and this one, they got broken. So I just kind of break them. I wouldn't need them. If things are being broken, I don't want to keep them. But this worked, we'll go with that assumption, and this all kind of worked. What I would do from this point is I'd start trying to get the ceilings in. I usually use these ramps as my basis for that. So we'll start here. And then I'll have that set up so it's 3 high from the bottom, but 2 high from up here. This is just to try to minimize the amount of builds that I need, but at the same time get what I am looking for. And then I would walk it across, and everywhere they're pathing is basically where I'm putting this, including by the ramps, like that. And that would be my starting basis. So you see, everywhere they're pathing, they're covered. And then right here, I just missed this one little corner. Like so. And then we look at starting the ceiling traps. The first ceiling trap, it's the ceiling drop trap. I'm still utilizing this at the very front of the tunnels because it still is a very effective way. And I'm only using one reload, so it's mostly just like a one-step process in the first filtration setup that I'm doing. So we still use this. It does count as the crowd control option, so that kind of takes one away from the equation for most of the husks walking past. And that's important to keep track of. So the ceiling drop traps, they're being placed kind of right over where these ramps are. They're the very first trap I'm using. No matter where they're being pathed from, they're the very first trap I'm using. And I have that right in there. And I'm not worrying about this side because nothing was pathing over that way. So I'm basically just using those two spots in our hypothetical situation for the drop traps. And that's just the first filter. The propanes have a hard time activating in there. So I'm really just trying to negate any damage that might happen in these tunnels. The next strap I pull out, it's going to be the ceiling electric field, and this one's going to be my all durability one. I do have two. For the ones nearest spawn, I'm using mostly durability. And so what I would do is I'd go through and right after the drop trap, that's where I'd be putting my durability ones. And I'd be doing that in the row that it's following along, kind of right where they're pathing. So husks walking up this can walk this tile, or they can walk this tile. So in those two tiles, I'm putting those scene electric fields. Because we don't have anything blocking here, because putting anything blocking here, it seems like, especially where I had to move this zap-o-max dynamo, that means things are just going to break it anyway. So we're utilizing the ceilings as our filter. And then right here, above the ramp next to here, I'd be putting another one. And that would be my next stage of the process. So with our electric fields up, and they're all in that 2-tile range to give the best use of them, we're now going to take a look at my next strap that I use in the ceilings, and that's going to be the gas strap. And the gas strap that I have set up here, it's that double crit damage, crit rating damage, but effect duration for the gas strap, because I want the gas to be spewing out for as long as possible. But that crit damage, crit rating damage build, you're going to notice I use that a lot, and that's just because it gives the best damage overall per use. Because of that crit hit chance of 1 in every 3, basically, no matter what trap you're using, you're getting almost 4 times the damage that a trap would normally put out. So even if you do it all damage, you're not going to get the same output as if you have it set up in this way, because the odds are in your favor when you use this kind of roll setup. So yeah, I'm going to take a look at the gas strap. Now the gas strap, you'll notice my ceilings are all here too high. We can't have that because gas traps won't activate. So right after here, what I would do is I would drop a wall down and a lower wall, just like that, just to start out with. Eventually you can clean it up and make it look prettier, but this is kind of where I set up. So I kind of get this set up where I have a gas trap here, but then you'll notice because this one's a little further up, I have a second gas trap, and that's actually pretty common. I would utilize 2 different gas traps, like 2 different gas traps in the line where they're pathing, just to, in case one wears out or whatever, I have a second backup. Or if the activation didn't hit on this one, it will hit on the next one. And I'll put them now. Gas traps, I place them a little differently than I place all my other traps. I place them the same way I place anti-airs. I kind of go to the left, looking right, and then I place. And I make sure the canisters are pointing out this way. I just found that the activation of the gas happens right as soon as they hit the tile this way, where if they were placed the other way or sideways, depending on where they're at on the tile, it might take a little longer for them to activate, and they're activated about halfway, or sometimes they can even cross almost the whole way if they're on the wrong side if it's sideways, and almost miss it altogether. So I kind of like having it set this way. I find I get the best activation with this setup. So I have that. So I'll put this here too, like so. And now for the floors, I utilize a second floor other than just the spikes, and that's going to be our freeze traps. And so here's how I do my freeze traps. The first floor freeze I use, and the one that's closest to spawn, it's going to be my all durability double reload effect duration. Again, if you haven't seen my videos before, the double reload effect duration is vital in almost every floor freeze trap schematic that I would recommend using. The second one I'm going to use, the one that's closer to the amp, it's going to be triple impact double reload effect duration. Again, that double reload effect duration is key. But I'm basically just swapping out my durability for the front end where most of the husks are going to be, and trading it for impact at the back to the end, back towards the amp, where fewer husks are going to be, and the ones that are going to be there, I want to hit them with as much damage as possible, so it allows them to freeze in place for as many crowd control hits as they have left. And what I'm going to do is anywhere there's a gas strap, so right here, I'm going to swap out my floor, and then right here, I'm going to swap out these floors. And then right here, because this one is closer to the spawn where they're walking in, this would be my triple durability double reload one. And then up here, even though this is the first time this pathing is getting hit, right here, I would put in the triple impact just because it's so close to the spawn now that I want them to get kind of stuck in place here. Uh-oh, the wood's gonna prevent me from trapping. There we go. There. And I'll just upgrade this so I can pick up that. All right. And so we have kind of the rudimentary start to a good tunneling system now. And now you'll notice I have blank spaces. So right now in these blank spaces, this is when I would go to my electric field, and I would use that double damage, crit rating damage, durability on the electric fields. And I would put one right here, and I'd put two right there. And then, at this stage, I would run it again. As you'll have these husks path up this way, get hit by the drops, the electric fields, the gas, and then there's another electric fields right there. And then here, they're getting hit with tires, the electric fields, gas, and then it swaps to an electric field, then back to gas, and then electric field again. Kind of alternating the damage, and anywhere they're under the gas, they're getting frozen, as well as they're getting hit by these darts. So it kind of locks them in place here for a bit longer. And right here, they're getting hit by darts and these dynamos right here. So at this stage, I'm not going to lie, you'll probably be good in Blankerton. With a build like this, you would probably be very safe. In Stonewood, you would probably even be able to get away with everything before that last setup. So you could take away the cash traps and all this other stuff, and you'd probably still be good. But I mean, this will take you that far, and you'll have pretty much no issues at all. The challenge is when they start to get, you know, propanes as well as a bit more damaging. Then you gotta, you know, get a bit more creative in this and what you would change. So the first thing is more damage. So to get more damage out of this, basically at the back end here, where we have these set up, I would take that out, and I would end up making these ones the ceiling zappers. And again, the double crit damage, crit rating, damage, durability, and I would put these here. Say you need it to have a little extra damage, you could go right next to the amp and put another ceiling and try to cover your bases that way. Chances are you probably wouldn't even need this one, but I would have it set up this way, kind of going right to the amp. And you still have these here, and you still have your electric fields here. And then the other thing I would start to do is look at other ways to get your damage in. And so right here would be a key spot. I would bring this down because they're pathing up here, but it's not just for this pathing, it's for this pathing too. I would put darts right here. Now we can't get this way because they're just going to break it, but we can get one dart right here. Just kind of through maneuvering, using the tools that you have available to you, like so. The other thing I would try to do is I would really try to concentrate their pathing up this way so you can do more on this ramp. And to do that, you would kind of do that setup. You don't need to do this side piece. And I would just make sure that they're really wanting to go this side, because it gives me a lot more freedom to do some stuff like this. So we're getting closer to spawn now, but we're not really spawn trapping. So from here, we can alter things a bit. And this is where, when you go into the higher regions, you really have to use your terrain to your advantage. And this is what we'd be doing here in our fake setup. And we have that. Technically, I would even say, see, this is all part of the process too, just trying to figure out the layout and what would work best. And readjusting where necessary. So like that. So basically what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get more damage out of this. Alright, so now we have our 3 high right here at the bottom of the ramp. And this is where we'll put our drop trap now, and designing this for a more damage output basis. And then we have this, we have our durability right here, and right here. So now that we have that, we can use what I'll do is I'll just do this to connect, so I don't break it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this, because that's our durability one, because you can tell what the usage is. It was 170. And our damage one is 110. So then I would also do this one. And I would swap those out for the damage ones. So now we're still getting a good damage output here, and we're still filtering them like so. And then you can also put walls here, and then you can take advantage of this now. Put a wall here, and then here's another thing that you can do is you can put a half wall back here, and then you can do a full wall back here. And now what we'll do is we'll use our darts and our zap-o-max dynamo like that to give ourselves some extra damage as they come up the line. But we're still trying to stick to a formula here. So we have our drop trap, our durability electric fields, then it goes into our damage electric fields, just because there isn't really a good spot for gas coming up this way for that first part. So this is where we have to kind of make our adjustments, where normally I'd like to have a freeze gas combo, where here I couldn't do that. You're kind of making exceptions and altering things a bit to allow for some extra damage. And this is where I would start getting the extra damage in, like so. And I'll leave some walls blank just for some flexibility, if I might need them later for either speakers, dynamos, or whatever. I have that option available to me. And then you can even really push the bounds on this. Like that. And do that same thing down here. Like that. And we're just, as I said, maximizing that damage output in the places that aren't going to get aggroed and broken. Like so. And then we just kind of leave this, because this has all the elements that I was looking for so far. So I just leave that. And then honestly, at this stage, I would probably run it again. So we have essentially all the elements, except for the last few crowd control pieces. Right now, all we use is these drops and those freeze traps. But there's 2 other stages to this, and that's going to be in the speakers and the launchers. I kind of use them similarly in a way where I'm trying to control the crowd. The speakers are more for propanes, and these launchers are more if it's a shorter area. I'm trying to get the most out of the damage possible. And I'll kind of show how I do that with each of these. So the first thing, our sound walls, it's durability with effect duration, and then all I'm doing is adding some alternate reloads in. I like this one, the legendary one, because it's 8.5 seconds. The reloads are slow, so you got to keep that in mind. So I have one reload here, and then I have a double reload here where it's still that legendary reload, but my second reload is green, and it gives a 7.4 seconds, so it's a little quicker. You could probably do a legendary and an epic and keep that durability, but the reload time I find is really slow on that. You might need a second row, and I'm not really going for a long string of sound walls as much as I'm just going for a quick little impact to try to minimize as much damage as possible with as little traps as possible. But you can kind of have a whole rainbow effect and do some fun things with sound walls. I'm just trying to opt for the most impact for the least amount. And I found this has been a pretty good combo for me. So where I'd put them is kind of right where they're starting to path in. So on this spot here, I would do it right here, and I'd make sure I'm alternating them. So if I use one in one spot, the other spot I'd put a different one, and that's kind of all I would do there. And you might find that you need more or you want to do more rows. I'm just trying to show kind of how I would set this up. So I do that, and then on this wall I put the other one. And I find between that, the tires, and then once they get up here, these freezes, that's usually all I need. Because this one doesn't utilize any freeze traps, you might even want to put 2 up on here, just to kind of help with that, like so. And then right here, because we haven't utilized this floor piece, I'd put the spikes because that will slow them as they're walking up here, and then they get more chance to get hit with all these other traps as they're coming up the line here. You could even put more traps here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show like the launcher piece. So just to slow things up and delay things, you could even do something like that right here, where you're pushing them back. And my launcher that I use is a double impact, double durability reload, heals builds attached. So it's in them here, and then what you can do is you can kind of do a little setup here just to give some extra damage. And delay the stuff that's coming up here, or kill the things that are coming up there with a little bit more gusto. So I would try something like that to begin with. So they're coming up, they're getting hit by stuff, the speakers are going off, so no propane, nothing's going to get damaged here in the process, but as they go in, they're being tossed back here into this little corner where we're basically just sending them to die a bit. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could even probably be pretty creative with this. And because it's a freeze trap here, we want it to go this way, so they're being pushed back here with the freeze trap. And then you could even go another piece to this, and you can add a gas trap in here, like that. And so they're going in here, they get pushed, and then they die. And it's more just a fail-safe, because ultimately, if this, say they break all this, or it explodes, you still have all this up here to still take care of that side. Your main focus now, you can kind of divert your attention to the ones that are mainly pathing up here, which we have a good setup for. And this is basically how I utilize my trap concepts in amp design. It's those 11 traps set up in the way that I have it. For those 14 different schematics, and it's pretty much darts, zap-o-maxes, kind of anywhere. These kind of at the front, but placed so that lobbers and flingers, anytime they throw, they'll activate. You might need more, but you shouldn't need more than 6 on any amp at any time, even with space rocks. If they're placed properly, they'll cover most things. Then you have your drop trap. I use basically a single one at the very start of their pathing. And then we have your electric fields, the durability at the front, the critical damage kind of towards the back. We have our gas traps, usually in 2 places. Both times they're underneath or on top of the floor freeze traps. At the front of the tunnel, you're looking at a durability reload speed. At the back, you're looking at that triple impact knockback. Then at the very, very back by your ramp, we have the ceiling zappers. Pretty much anywhere there isn't a floor wooden spike or the top of a ramp, in their pathing, we have a floor spike. And then at the start, right where that drop is, we have the sound walls staggered and then anywhere you can, you try to yeet them for a little extra damage, making kill boxes and what have you. But you'll notice that a lot of people use these traps now because a lot of these traps are the only traps we have that don't activate the crowd control. And I'm using the floor freeze, the drop, and the speakers because I find that they give you the best return for your crowd control options. And then the launchers, where you can, I'm not the greatest at recycling, so I usually avoid it. But you can do a lot with these launchers with the few crowd control hits that we get. There's a lot of good builds out there. But this is basically how I build every amp. That's the method behind the madness. There's no no variant basically. I'm pretty standard that way. I take a cookie cutter and I just apply it to everywhere, and that's how I do it. I'm taking a different terrain and I'm utilizing it to show kind of how I would use that, and that's basically what it would look. Eventually I would try to clear cut this based off of what region I am. Or you might even want to look at altering the perks to better suit the terrain or needs. But yeah, that's essentially how I utilize these traps. And these are the traps I find work the best in our current environment. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time. Hope this information's been helpful. And I'll catch you around.